Hello and welcome everyone. We're going live here. And just checking to make sure we are actually live. If that worked, and it did. All right. Welcome everyone. Glad to be presenting once again in front of you live here on Adobe InDesign Live. We'll call it that today. Welcome everyone, and thanks for joining me live here for this quick stream on 5 tips for working with images inside of InDesign. And there are lots of tips for working with images in InDesign, but I picked a few of my favorites, some that I get questions about on a regular basis, and figured that it is probably best to go ahead and talk about them in a live stream like this. So let me make sure I have my comments up so I can see what you guys are saying. That might help. Alrighty, there we are. And I see InDesign's in the house, and I think that's probably Kat. Welcome, and thank you for helping out today. And let's, Victoria, I see, is always here, always also able to answer questions. Although InDesign is not as much of our strong suit as Photoshop is. But we've got some great people in here ready to answer questions, and therefore we will jump right into it. So, as you know, InDesign's a page layout application and the industry-standing, award-winning page layout application that I have been enjoying for over 10 years. Although it gets lots of new features along the way, along those 10 years, and certainly features that help you work with images, there are a few basics that we'll cover and maybe a few hidden ones that aren't as obvious, but we'll jump into those as well. So welcome everyone coming in from around the world. Hey, Shannon, Michael, Jeff, and Jabin, as well as Roberto, Zeshan, Rahad, Klaus, and everyone else I may have missed. So welcome everybody, and let's go ahead and jump right in. So I've got InDesign CC open with a couple of documents right off the bat. And tip number 1, and this is one of my favorite tips, especially when you're going to do a large layout or layout with multiple images, is to do a little groundwork up front when you build your frame, and that will make placing those images a lot easier. What I mean by that is, let's say that I want to go ahead and place 6 images on this page. So let's, first of all, let's find the halfway point on this page. This is 8.5 by 11 page, so the halfway point is going to be right about there. All right, so I want to stick to give myself a little bit of a margin off that, and I should have created this as 2 columns. That would have saved me time, but I just thought of it just now, so bear with me. All right, so now I've got the page equally divided in half the way I want, and I'm going to go ahead and create my first frame using the rectangle frame tool, and we'll just go ahead and drag out a frame. Now, I'm not measuring the height. I could have also divided the height in equal rows as well when I created the page, or I can actually add those guides after the fact. But this is not a guides tutorial. This is a image tutorial. Okay, so I got my first image frame in place. And before I just start either copying it or duplicating it and putting images in it, one of the tips, and this is tip number 1, just go up to your object menu while you've got that frame selected. Go down to the fitting command, and you'll notice that you have frame fitting options even if there's no image in it. So a lot of people think, I got to place the image and then deal with sizing the image after the fact. And this is the first tip, is that you don't have to do it that way. You can actually get the size determined, or the way the image is going to fit determined, before you even place the image in the frame. So when I do frame fitting options, I can say that, hey, I want the images to fill the frame proportionally, which is my favorite option. And you can even dictate from what edge it will start from. So for example, I've got it in the center. So if the image is too big, it's going to center it down to fit, and anything that's left over will be all around the edges. If I wanted to always apply to the upper left corner, then I could pick that as my anchor point or my starting point. So now I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and nothing happens obviously because there's no image in the frame, but now that has been set for this frame. So that means that, yes, Kelly, this is recorded. All the live streams are always available for replay as soon as I hit stop live. All right, so you'll be able to watch it immediately when I'm done on this page. All right, so let's go ahead and now that I've got that set, I want to get the other images ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and just hold down my Option key or my Alt key if I were in Windows, and that way I can just drag that frame, and if I hold down the Shift key, I can get that frame dragged down to the center point of the page. And now, one more time, Option and start dragging, then hold down the Shift key to keep it perfectly straight, and then I get that frame placed in place as well. So now I've got the 3 frames, which I'm just going to hold down the Shift key and select all 3. And now that I've got all 3 selected, I'm going to go ahead and hold down my Option or Alt key and duplicate them one more time over to the side. And that way I've got now my 6 frames, but more importantly, I've got my 6 frames set so that they will fill the frame proportionally. Now the next tip, and this is really a bonus tip. This is really not one of the 5, but a lot of people don't realize you can also place multiple images at the same time. So for example, when I choose File and Place or Drag and Drop, I can File and Place, go grab, for example, 6 images, grab those 6 images and hit Open, and what that will do is load the cursor with all 6 images. It even gives you a little count to let you know, hey, you've got 6 images loaded in this cursor. Begin placing wherever you want. So that means that I can build these frames as I go, or since I already have the frames in place, I can go ahead and start placing them anywhere I want. So if I want to put them in order, I can put them in order, left, right, up and down, or random order. So if I want this one first, or I'm sorry, last at the bottom, I can just click, and now that one has been placed and sized perfectly to fill that frame. And I can just go bam, bam. You got to put the sound effects in. That really makes a difference. Bam, boom, done. And now I've got all 6 images placed, and they all fit perfectly. They're sized to perfectly fit those frames. Now, if you run into a situation where you say, well, and I don't know how much is cropped off of this, but I can see the handlebars kind of cropped off this one image. If I want that, I can, of course, pick this image up and move it over. Because the rest of the image is still there, the frame is just really a container or using it as a crop. And that leads us to the second tip, although I wasn't going to do it on this image, but we can certainly do it on this one. And that is, I'm going to undo it and put it back. There is something that I have been, oops, hang on, sorry about that. Oh, no, wrong key, sorry. Wrong key, there we go. Want to zoom in. My fingers were on the wrong keys. Okay, there's been something I've been, I don't know what the official name of this feature is, or even if it has an official name, but it's something I dubbed PMU, or is that right? No, PUM. PUM is the acronym for it, and it's called Patient User Mode. Sounds hilarious, I know. Patient User Mode means if you are patient with InDesign, if you give InDesign 1 or 2 seconds before you start doing whatever it is you're trying to do, and let me turn this GPU off for a second here, get my images looking back the way they should look. Okay, if you turn this off, scratch that. You go back to patient user mode. If you use patient user mode, you can actually get more information as you're working with InDesign. And it works in multiple areas of the program. For example, I know I want to get that handlebar moved over, so I can grab the content grabber right here, this little circle right in the middle, which will appear as you hover over each image, and I can just start dragging it. And that gave it to me, but I really didn't see it until I let go. So let me undo that one more time. And let's say I don't want to move it all the way over, I just want to move it over enough to where we see the edge of the handlebar. So tip number 2, PUM, patient user mode, don't be in a hurry. If you give InDesign 2 seconds, it will let you see what you're about to drag before you drag it. So here's how it works. Before I start dragging it, if I just simply hold down the mouse for count to 2, 1, 2, it shows the rest of the image while you're holding the mouse down. Now you're in patient user mode. That means that now I can drag it over just as much as I want to and see it while I'm doing it. So I'll move it over just a little bit, not that much, and let go, and I'm done. So instead of me click, oh, not enough, click, oh, too much, click, oh, move back, oh, too much. Now, instead of doing that back and forth in multiple clicks, hold down, wait a second, and then you'll see it and you can move it exactly where you want it to be in the frame. So that was something I have been calling patient user mode for many, many years in working with InDesign. All right, so that was tip number 2, patient user mode. Tip number 3, we're going to head over to another document here. And in this document, we're going to place an image in this large frame that's already here. How to PDF file fast place. I'm not sure what that means. I don't know what you mean by how to PDF file fast place. So if you give us some more detail, we can maybe get that answer. All right, so we got this frame selected. I'm going to go ahead and choose File in Place. And I'm going to go ahead and grab an image from a different folder. I've got one here, and it's called Blue Light. Okay, we're going to move Blue Light in, and Blue Light comes in, and there it is. And then I notice, oh, with that banner over the image, the actual blue light that's part of the file is covered up. So the text that says blue light is covered up. So I can either A, move that blue banner up or down or get rid of it or make it smaller. But if that's the design, if that's the way we want to keep it, then I really need to edit this image to move the actual text that's in the image where I need it to be. Now, many people will tell you, and I agree, don't put the text in Photoshop. Wait till you get to InDesign to put the text. But if this was the file you were already handed as a Photoshop document, then you'd still have to go to Photoshop to turn the text off so you can just retype it in InDesign. But I do agree, if you're building this from scratch, place the image and then build your text using InDesign text instead of Photoshop text. But since this is the hand we were dealt, we're going to hold down the Option or Alt key. And this is tip number 3. When you hold down the Option or Alt key and double click, that will open up the file in its original application. So in this case, it will open it up in Photoshop, since this was a Photoshop document. And of course, the layer is still there. So now I can work with that layer. For example, I can say, oh yeah, that's going to need to come up quite a bit. And I'm going to hit Command T and free transform it down. Let's make it smaller. We know we can see the top of his shoulder, so we'll put it right there. And then all I have to do is save it. I want to save my change and close it. And I could have duplicated the, oh, you know what? Let's do it that way. Let's go back. Instead, because maybe I want to keep it this way for future reference. So let's duplicate the layer. Let's turn one off. And now let's move the top one up and scale it down. So I'll still have the bottom one in place where it belongs without disturbing the top one. Let's make sure we get it nice and small so we know we can see it. All right, so there we go. And let's save it. Let's close it. And let's go ahead and switch back to InDesign, and InDesign updates automatically. So now we see the blue light that was covered up by the banner. So tip number 3, if you need to edit the original, the quickest, easiest way to edit the original is to Option or Alt, depending on your platform, double click on the image, it will take you back to the application that created whatever it is you placed, or a default application. All right, the next one is going to require something to be built that I hadn't built yet. So let's go ahead, let's kill 3 of these images first. All right, let's get rid of those. Let's go ahead and grab the text frame type tool. Let's build a text frame out here. And let's say that we want to just do it to right there. I'll explain the reason for that in a minute. Let's go up to our type menu and let's come down to, it's under type. I never can remember where this is. There it is, under type, fill with placeholder text. So when I fill with placeholder text, and by the way, I know that's all, you know, sample text, which won't spell check correctly. So let's turn off the dynamic spelling just so we're not bothered by the red lines. Okay, so we got our text in place, and of course you'd style it, make it the right font, make it say what it's actually supposed to say, use style sheets and all of that. But now I'm going to go ahead and pull the frame down all the way, because I didn't want the frame full of text. I wanted some room left over. So fill with placeholder text will always fill the frame whatever size the frame is. So if you want less text, you'd have to make the frame smaller. And that's exactly what I did. All right, next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and let's go to, I might have it in a library. If not, I'll go place it. Let's see if I have it in a library. I've done this tip before, but we'll go ahead and pull this one in. All right, so we'll pull in a piece of vector art. And when I pull it in, because I don't have a frame selected, I'm just gonna go ahead and click, and it will build a frame for me. And beautiful part of that is that this vector has no background, so the background's transparent. And if I hold down my Command Shift and scale, I can scale that down. And now I wanna go ahead and put that, let's say right there. Let's make it a little smaller. Smaller. And now, of course, what I'm trying to do is I want the text to wrap around it. So what I could do is simply select the vector image, and I can go to my text wrap options, which are right here. And if I look at those text wrap options on the control panel, wow, this kind of looks like this one, or this one look like the ones I want. And this one says, wrap around the object shape. Perfect, that's what I'm looking for. It even says it. But when you click it, you get disappointed because although it says it, it lies. It's been lying for 10 years. It will wrap around the object shape, but you got to do one more thing. So it doesn't do it when you first click on it. What you'd have to do to make it really wrap around the object shape is bring up the text wrap panel. When you bring up the text wrap panel, then you can say what you want it to wrap to or what type. So right now, it's wrapping on both sides, which is great, but I want to change it to, oops, I deselected it. I want to change it to detect edges. That means don't do it around the box or around the shape of the container. Detect the actual edges of the graphic itself and wrap around that instead. And while you're at it, that's a little too close to the image. Let's go ahead and move the text a little bit further away from it to give us a nice little margin around it. But now it is in the shape, and I can even go in as another bonus tip. I can even go in with the direct selection tool and control the shape. So if I wanted it for whatever reason to be a little bit further away, I can literally pick up the handles and move them further away and control that shape. Same thing with patient user mode. If you were to click on the shape itself, deselect, click on the actual bounding box and move it around. Oh, I don't want both of them. Hang on, sorry about that. Let's go back to this. There we go. You won't see it rewrap until you let go. But if you use patient user mode, which is click and hold down, now as you drag it, it will update and show it to you more gracefully as you move it around. All right, so that's tip number 4. That is the text wrap option. And yeah, cool. Thanks for posting the link to learn how to text wrap around objects on Facebook. Thank you. All right, next one. Aha, thank you. Been using InDesign for years, did not know that control. Well, Pearly cream cheese, glad I could help. And hello from Dubai, Kansas, and Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Montreal, and everyone else. All right, so let's go ahead and continue on to tip number 5. Tip number 5, I'm going to go ahead and create a new page for this one. So I want a blank page for this. Let's just go ahead and add a new page. All right, for this one, this is going to get into an old effect. It's been around for years, but it's one that people really like to use sometimes. So let's say that I want to go ahead and create a text frame right here in the middle of the page, or thereabouts. And now that I got that text frame, I'm going to go ahead and type the word InDesign. And now that I've got the word InDesign, I'm going to make it nice and large. So I'm holding down Command Shift greater than. But before I settle on the size, I want to pick a nice thick font. So I'm going to go up to the font menu. I'm going to type in the word heavy. Show me all my heavy fonts. Show me all my heavy fonts. And it does it, just like a game show. All right, so I can say, I know that probably of the heaviest ones I have, either Tablet Gothic Wide is pretty heavy, or Fat Frank is pretty heavy. You know what? I'm going to try the Tablet Gothic Wide. Yeah, that's pretty heavy. All right, so we'll make that now bigger, and we've got our text in place. So right now, as it stands, that is still text, and you can do whatever you want to do with it. You can make it a different font, different size, different color, whatever, you know, change the word, fix a typo, whatever. Get it looking the way you want it to look before you move on to this next trick. And if you really are concerned that, oh no, if I screw up on the next thing, I'll have to start over, then what you can do, hold down your Option or Alt key, you can duplicate this, and you can put that on a new layer all by itself. Which we'll just do that. We'll move it up to that layer. We'll move it up to that layer. There we go. And then we'll turn that layer off. So now I've got one on a hidden layer, just in case I need to get it back. The other tip you could do, and this is probably one I would do instead of what I just showed you, I would just go ahead and drag it into a library. So that way I've always got it to pull it back onto the page in case I screw up with what I'm going to do next. Okay, so now that I got my backup copy of it, what do I want to do? The reason I told you to make a backup one way or the other is because you're now going to go into the type menu and you're going to come down to Create Outlines. Command-Shift-O. When you do a Create Outlines, what that will do is it will convert the text into an actual graphic. So now those are vector paths, vector lines and curves. It's no longer the word InDesign in text. I can't click my type tool in anymore. I can't change what it says anymore. I have to treat it like it's an image. And that's great, because if I ever need the text again, I made 2 backup copies of it. Now that I've got the image, why did I do that? Because with the image, you can now drag in, for example, a photo. If you hover over this and click, it will use it as a frame. That's right. So now you've got patient user mode to show you the rest of the image. You can even do a frame fitting option on it. So let's frame fit it down. And again, you want to pick words or pick parts of the image that will show better. Usually the eyes will show better if you're doing people. But you can get it kind of looking like whatever it is the image is. So you basically have turned the word InDesign into a custom frame. So that way, you've got this frame that can be used to place anything that you can place into a frame. And because it is vector lines and curves, you can reshape it any way your heart's content. All right, speaking along those lines, we already covered our five of the tips, but now we're going to cover a couple of bonus ones. I've got like -3 minutes to show this because I wanted to keep this to a specific time that I'm already over. All right, I'm already over 3 minutes, but let's just give you a couple bonus tips real quick. So let's go ahead and move that up out of the way. And the next thing we're going to do, bonus tip number 1, is that frames are literally just shapes. So if we go back up a page, just like I was able to move or alter the D in InDesign because it was just a shape, well, even these rectangles are just vector shapes. So for example, if I go to my direct selection tool and click on this rectangle, I really didn't have to do it that way, but I can use the pen tool in InDesign to actually add points to this frame. And that way, once the points have been added, I can add them anywhere I want along the edge of the frame. Once those points have been added, then I can use my direct selection tool to alter the shape of this frame. Because even though I drew it with just the rectangle tool, all frames in InDesign are vector shapes and therefore can be modified to be whatever shape you want them to be. Speaking of which, why stop there? Let's go back down to this page where I left some room. Let's pop over to Adobe Illustrator. In Illustrator, I've got an actual drawing. And what I've done is I've taken the direct selection tool and I've selected just one of the sails on the sailboat. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to come back to InDesign and paste it. When you copy and paste from Illustrator, it copies and pastes as a vector shape. If I were to place it, like just place the sailboat or even just the one sail, then it treats it just like any other image. But because I did the copy and paste, that means that I can go in and pull that same guy in we did before and place him right in that frame. We're going to go ahead and scale him down. And then, of course, we can use patient user mode and move him over. So now we have a cool guy on blue in our sailboat frame that we just got from Illustrator. So always remember that InDesign frames are just vector shapes. Do whatever you want to do with them. And you can create them any way you want, as either shapes in InDesign or shapes vectors, which are easier to draw in Illustrator. Copy, paste them in, then use them as frames. All right, so that is it. That is my 5 plus 2 tips, 2 extra bonus tips from or for today's InDesign stream. Now, if you are not like totally done and you're not tired and you want to learn more, well, there is a 3-day stream going on right now. It's actually day 3 of this 3-day stream, and it's happening over at AdobeLive.com. Let me tell you or show you who you might still be able to catch before the day is up. All right, so again, if you want to see more cool stuff right now happening as soon as you leave the stream, head over to AdobeLive.com and check out the last, let's see, it's 1:26 Pacific time, so there's at least 2, I believe 2 more designers that you can watch today, because it ends at 5 Pacific time. So you got a few hours left of graphic design content to go check out. So with that said, thanks for watching, everybody.